As you start to hear any of this information about, is it a recession? Is it not a recession? Oh my gosh, inflation. Oh my God. I want you to start to see what your response and or reactivity is to that information. If you are triggered by the information, so it's triggering a fear inside of you, then that just means something needs to shift inside of yourself. It's not actually about what's going on outside. It's about how are you operating in the world and how do you need to shift that? Hey everybody, what is going on? Julie Murphy here, and we are going to talk about how to recession-proof yourself. Well, things are kind of shaky out there, aren't there? Well, let's talk about that. But, before we do, I want to make sure you hit that subscribe, like, and notification bell. Why? Because we're going to get you here to a life that you absolutely love. And one of the things that is critically important in that process is to how to stop whipsawing with everything that's going on in the economy. Now, we are at a point in history where things are rocking and rolling. And they're rocking and rolling a lot, but it's not that they're not rocking and rolling like they once have. And there's patterns. And not that I want to normalize what we're all going through right now, because it's not normal. It's not normal to go through a pandemic. It's not normal to have all this infrastructure flip upside down, from our medical systems to our schooling systems to our financial systems. It's like everything, the fire hose is just like, it just keeps coming at us, right? So I think it's so important for us to actually take a look at, how do we really recession proof ourselves? So let me give you an example. Through the years, I have actually had people say to me going, "You're crazy for owning your own business." And I go, "Why am I crazy?" And what I realized is that comment of somebody saying that to me was actually them processing their own fear in their own system, and it was an emotional projection. So now, what many of us do is that we turn around and we take that in like it's true and like it's ours. And then we personalize it. And if you've ever read the book, The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, which is a great, great book, he talks about one of the four agreements in life is do not personalize. And there's many teachers throughout the years that have taught the exact same thing. But if we can start to recognize when comments like that come at us, whether it's news clippings or emails and things that are going, recession proof for yourself, or what that's coming at you, it's trying to trigger some kind of fear that you've got going on inside of yourself. So you have the choice to whether or not to activate that in yourself or not activate that emotionally inside of yourself. Because if you continue to have this heightened sense of awareness of a lack of money, or that it's going to fall apart, this fear that it's all going to fall apart, that everything you've worked super hard for is just going to go kaplunk, well, guess what? That's when you actually call it in. That's when you manifest your fears. That's when you manifest your concerns, because you're actually concerned about it. And if you don't believe me, you got to take a look at some of the research that's done on this by Greg Braden or Dr. Bruce Lipton. I talk about their scientific work in that in the quantum field, we actually live in a hologram. And so it's kind of like, think of it like, do unto others as you want done to yourself, right? Treat others as the way you would wish to be treated. These are all phrases that many of us have heard from our parents or our grandparents. And it's because we live in a holographic world. So what you put out there then comes back at you in some form or fashion, maybe not directly, but it can come indirectly. And so if we don't stop tapping into those fears and that hyper reactivity to everything, and start to recognize that hyper reactivity is actually just something that is coming up to actually be healed within ourselves. And I talk about some of these things in my book, The Emotion Behind Money, because we need to start to recognize our emotion behind money has nothing to do with the actual money itself. But it is when we're reacting to things that are happening in what we call in the macro environment, versus our micro environment, which is our inside. That's where macro and microeconomics come from. That we can only shift anything that's on the inside. And when you shift it on the inside, then it shifts it from you outside. And people would say to me all the time, I can't believe you own your own company. Aren't you afraid? And I would sit there to myself going, what am I going to go do? Go back and eat fried bologna and spaghetti like I did when I was a kid, being one of 12 children? Like, I wasn't afraid of that because it's never going to go to that because I'm an adult and I can go to work and I can always work hard and provide for myself. Like, I never doubted that. I don't have that fear. That's not something that's inside of me. And so since it's not inside of me, it's not what's created outside of me. And so I would encourage all of you, as you start to hear any of this information about, is it a recession? Is it not a recession? Oh my gosh, inflation. Oh my God. I want you to start to see what your response and or reactivity is to that information. If you are triggered by the information, so it's triggering a fear inside of you, then that just means something needs to shift inside of yourself. It's not actually about what's going on outside. It's about how are you operating in the world and how do you need to shift that. Now, when that trigger starts to come up, you kind of go, okay, Jewel, that's fine and good. But the market's been falling for a few months now and we're not near the bottom and inflation's still going to come and blah, 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 blah. Whatever the rest of that story is that you're telling yourself, what do? Well, this is where, number one, you have to make sure you create that safe container for yourself, because that safe container is actually what allows all those old feelings to come up and out. And then you can start to establish a new reality in how you're going to respond to no longer react to the world. So you might be in such a hyper state that you are reactive. As an example, I talked to a woman today and she's like, oh my God, I need to buy. I'm getting kicked out of the place I'm renting and I got to buy, but the rents are too high and I don't know if I want to take money out. Recession's down and blah, 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 blah. And this is someone who's living on fixed income, divorced, fixed income, and she's only got 6 more years of alimony payments. And you know what? There can be fear that can come up in that. Well, then I started to pull pieces together of, she now, after a few years of being divorced, has built confidence of her standing on her own 2 feet and doing her thing. She's also built a little bit more confidence in her own ability to cash manage what she has. And she's gotten more in tune of what's true for her today in terms of the kind of work that she wants to do in the world now that her kids are launching into the world. So this is where you have to go inside. It's an inside job. That is why my book, The Emotion Behind Money, actually has the subtitle, Building Wealth from the Inside Out. That's your micro world. That's your reflection out into the world of what you want reflected back to you. So when we actually worked through the logistics for her, realizing, okay, she really doesn't want to pay the high rent payments out there. She'd love to get a property underneath her belt. She's going to scratch the itch on her desire to remodel. She's frugal as all get out. So all these little aspects of her are actually coming out in her authenticity to have a property that's within her means and something fun that she can redecorate and do on a minimal budget. And it's going to provide her income for the future because she wants to build a real estate portfolio. And this is all post babies. Like, they're now in their late teens and 20s. And so at any age or any time, you can begin to create that insulation in your life. And even though rocky waters are happening in the market today as when I make this video, that doesn't mean that you can't start to create that insulation right now. Because it's all about how you choose to respond to the world and get out of reactivity. So love yourself enough to start to take a look at how can you do that? You know, is it creating more space for yourself with reducing your cash outlays and your expenses because you're choosing other things as priorities? Or you're choosing to reduce debt levels or reduce the interest rates that you're paying on debt because maybe you're still paying higher ones, or maybe get rid of the debt completely. It's all about make sure day in and day out that you're taking a blank canvas and saying, I'm going to design my life this way today. And that's what starts to create the insulation. And then you're creating a life that you love. And then when the recessions happen, doesn't mean that you have to like them. And it doesn't mean that you don't like market corrections, whether it's a correction or a full recession. You're insulated and you're living the life that you want to live. People do not care about market fluctuations when they're living the life that they want to live. And they've created the proper insulation for themselves so that they stay in an empowered state and not a fearful state of what might happen. Any other tips and tools, please go to juliemurphy.com. I'm doing group coaching every quarter. You can jump on in and I'm happy to help. Next one's going to start August 1st for this year, but every quarter I'm going to start a new group. So come join us. And don't forget, you can get my book, awakenyourwealthbook.com, for free. And all you have to do is pay for the shipping. We'll talk to you guys soon. Have the best day ever. Bye.